Okay. Are you all ready? All two of us? Getting there. Yeah.
He's still not gonna be any nice to you, you know. Oh. You look the same. You look the same. Is that good or is that not good? He must already have what he wants.
You have a long list of House sponsors here. But evidently Delegate Clippinger is here, so. Delegate, Mr. Chairman. 677.
It's just never mind. I don't know what to do here. Sitting down. Good afternoon, committee. This is House Bill 677. A bill related to funding for the Pride of Baltimore, which is a beautiful ship that is an ambassador for our city and our state around the world. It's an extension of the legislation the General Assembly passed in 2018. It increases the, as it was initially introduced, it increased the appropriations from $500,000 to $600,000. However, the House sent it over at $500,000. It requires the entity receiving the funds to provide a report on expenditures and a business plan to reduce the amount of state funds needed. It's been sailing around the world since 1988. There's a representative from the Pride here. If people have more specific questions they want to ask the Pride, but they do work around the world to promote Maryland's economic development opportunities and teach others about the rich maritime history of Baltimore City and the state of Maryland. The state, as many of you probably already know, owned and operated the Pride until 2008 when it was bought by the not-for-profit Pride of Baltimore Incorporated. Since 2016, the state has been providing funding through the Transportation Trust Fund. However, when the state couldn't fund the Pride, the not-for-profit organization was forced to draw down from its endowment, and because keeping up with a big wooden ship is expensive, they drained the account. And so that is why they are here, is to ask for the state's ongoing support so they can continue to be an ambassador around the world.
So this has been going, how long have they been? This is an extension.
This is an extension. They started getting funding in 2018, which I guess would have been for fiscal 19. And so the goal here would be to extend that funding while still asking them to put together a business plan.
How long?
My brain just stopped. My brain just stopped.
That's okay. We'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
through 28.
Something
Sorry,
we're-
fiscal 24 through 28.
I'm sure we're going to try to do something, but
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any questions?
No
All right.
questions.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
All right.
All right. Four.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Delegate Jessica Feldmark, here to present House Bill 404. You all may remember that last year you passed Senate Bill 349, which was a local Baltimore County bill, which our good friend Senator Hedelman sponsored, to allow a hardship exemption for the homeowner's property tax credit. And I thought it was a great idea. I said, let's enable that statewide. So that is what House Bill 404 did in its original form. And in conversations with the Baltimore County administration, there were some challenges in the implementation, the application process, the screening for eligibility were a little more administratively burdensome than anticipated, and they could really use SDAT's help with that process. So what we did, working together with MACO and SDAT, came up with a new approach to achieve the same goal. So we are working now within the local supplement to the homeowner's property tax credit, and we have added to the list of criteria that a local government can alter the combined gross income. So by adding the authority for the local government to alter the combined gross income, then they can add their own hardship criteria and achieve the same outcome. So this is, I think, a good compromise to achieve the hardship exemption, which was the original intent, and actually provides a little additional flexibility for counties to pursue other options. And we did include the same authority for municipalities as well. So with that, I'll ask for your favorable report and happy to answer any questions. So SDAT is here to answer questions or if it- and support. Okay. Am I keep going? Okay. House Bill 665. This is another look at not only the homeowner's tax credit, but actually looking at all of the tax credits that SDAT administers and looking for opportunities to enhance access, raise awareness, and simplify the application process by asking the Comptroller's Office and SDAT to work together on how they can facilitate easier application, easier access, making sure that folks who are eligible for these tax credits are getting them consistently and easily. So thank you. Sounds like it's time to stop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
444. Oh, there.
Quick and great, I like that. On the budget and tax more. For the record, I'm Delegate Nick Charles, Chairman of the Prince George's County House Delegation, here on behalf of House Bill 444, Prince George's County Payment in lieu of tax agreements, low-income housing. This bill is a Prince George's County delegation bill. It authorizes the governing body of our county to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with an owner of real property that is used for low-income housing that is financed through the county's right of first refusal program, or acquired, constructed, or rehabilitated for the purpose of operating low-income housing and generally relating to payment in lieu of taxes agreements for low-income housing. Prince George's County, the bill passed favorably, of no issues within our delegation and also within the House as well. So there's no issues here. But if there are any questions of substance, we do have Aspasia Zyfolia, the Director of Department of Housing, Community Development from Prince George's County, here as well.
Did the Senate delegation weighed in on this?
I have not seen a letter. I asked Senator Benson if you guys, I know you are in the process of voting on a lot of bills, and tomorrow they have a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning to finalize weighing in on all of the delegation bills.
Okay, look forward to seeing that. House Bill 1288.
Right. For the record, Delegate Nick Charles, House Bill 1288 in favor of video lottery employee license of gambling. We got rid of the gambling offenses, alterations. This bill is a second chance bill. It passed the House favorably with Republicans and Democrats, which I thought was a really good show of effort for this bill to give people a second chance. Currently, right now, in order to work in a casino, you cannot have any infractions or any type of record. What this bill does is it allows for folks who go through any of our problem-solving courts within the state of Maryland, which we have 62 problem-solving courts. It allows for them to get licensure to work within a casino. And it also shows that they have to have only had a misdemeanor, nonviolent offense. So they go through the problem-solving courts, they pass through with no issues, and this is such a tedious process. They will then be allowed to work in a casino. And this bill has the support of the casinos in the state, and it also has support of the gaming folks. So it's a good bill. It's a good second chance bill, and hoping that we can pass this favorably within this body as we did in the House.
Very good. You have some witnesses? Or
Yep,
do they-
we do have, so
or they-
we have MGM Casino here. Actually, come on up. Gary Watson.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kerry Watson. I'm Regional Vice President for Government Affairs for MGM Resorts International here in support of House Bill 1288. But also I happen to be the past chair of Employ Prince George's and the current president of the Prince George's Problem Solving Courts Foundation. So as a matter of quick background, when we first opened up our property in Prince George's County, we had roughly 350 employees that we had deemed hireable, but because of that statute, the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency determined that they were not eligible to work in casinos. Part of our commitment to our communities is really about providing people opportunities. You know, they may not have college degrees, they may not have all the educational gifts that some of us have been able to achieve, but we think that we can give them an opportunity and a great career. And at a time in the state when we are considering whether certain nonviolent drug offenses, as an example, should be criminalized, we think it's also a great idea to kind of revisit these opportunities for individuals that may not have had those opportunities before. So with that, I would ask for a favorable report.
Sounds like a good idea. Anybody else who wants to talk on this?
It's us two. That's it.
Okay.
We didn't want to hold you guys up here
Well, I
today.
mean, I have signed up. I mean, this is the lotteries here. You're good with it.
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly, we support the bill.
Very good. All right, and I had two people virtual, but they're not here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
$524.
29.
Isn't it? I have 524. Stadium Authority.
No, not me.
Sorry. I have somebody, these are appropriation committee ones. We're 735. Okay, let's go to. What's that? Yeah, but I mean, you don't have the chair of appropriations or. It is a department. Oh, he just said to go ahead with it. Okay, very good. Then we'll bring up the Stadium Authority. Yep. Okay, great. You did.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm here today to testify on behalf of the original Bill 524 that was submitted. What you see before you, and again, my name is David Wraith. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Maryland Stadium Authority. Before you today is a technical amendment that is related to House Bill 896 that was passed during the legislative session last year that increased the bonding capacity for Camden Yards and provided additional lottery for the debt service. The missing item from last year's legislation was the creation of two financing funds. One financing fund would be for half of the lottery to be deposited to a baseball financing fund, and the other one is for a football financing fund. The purpose of these two funds is this is what is used to pledge to the bondholders as the security on the bonds. Historically, when we have issued debt for Camden Yards, we've done it under a master lease agreement where the state of Maryland guarantees the debt service payment, and that is classified as tax supported debt. The creation of these two funds makes these revenue bonds, and by pledging these to the bondholders, this does not impact the capital debt affordability calculations in any way because it's not tax supported debt. So I'm here asking for a favorable report for the changes under House Bill 524.
Questions? Okay,
Thank you.
735. You're up again, I think. Or maybe not. 735. What did you just say? Two.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am here on behalf of, I guess, of the Chair of Appropriations. This is our departmental bill, though. For the record, Patrick Hogan, University System of Maryland, here testifying in support of HB 735. HB 735 authorizes the use of $30 million in academic facilities bonds for the purposes of financing construction, renovation, and renewal projects on campuses across the USM. This is our annual departmental bill, and similar legislation has passed each year for about the last couple decades. Specifically, this bill authorizes $5 million for an infrastructure project at the University of Maryland College Park. Additionally, $25 million is included for facilities renewal on buildings across the system, and a list of those projects can be found on pages 22 and 23 of the capital budget book. The bill was amended in the House to allow our non-residential institutions to use the proceeds from the sale of real property for operating expenses. And with that amendment, the USM asks for a favorable report on HB 735. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Erin Favaza, and I'm with the University of Maryland Global Campus, here also in support of House Bill 735, especially the provision that Mr. Hogan already mentioned that authorizes non-residential campuses to use the proceeds from the sale of property for operating purposes. And happy to answer any questions, and again, urge a favorable report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
896.
Chair, I'm from Delegate Fair's office. I'm his chief of staff. He is literally running out of one committee hearing. We'll be here momentarily.
Okay, we can wait. 680.
Hello, how you doing, Chair?
I'm gonna feel like deja vu all over again.
Dan? If the Bankers Association can join me, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon. We generally run out of days of what we know what day it is during this time of the year. So good afternoon, Senator, Chair Gazone, and members of the Budget and Tax Committee. I am Delegate Karen Tolles from District 25, as we like to say. And I'm pleased to be before you today regarding HB 680, student loan debt relief tax credit alterations. HB 680 will provide important financial relief for Marylanders who are burdened with student loan debt. The purpose of this bill is to double the current tax credit funding from 9 million to 18 million, set aside 5 million for those who have Pell Grants, generally those who are underserved communities and HBCUs. And finally, it would give the recipients of this tax credit 2 years instead of 5 years to repay it. Typically what happens, you have 2 years to repay this loan servicer. Now you will get 3 years, give folks a little bit more time. And according to the Maryland Higher Education Commission, Marylanders are applying for this fund in record numbers. Therefore, it is a necessity to increase the available funding so that more Marylanders can take advantage of our student loan debt relief here in Maryland. And so we also want to close by saying that I asked for favorable support on this bill. This bill was voted unanimously out of the House Ways and Means Committee. It has support from a few of our colleges from around the state of Maryland. This bill was also part of our dynamic speaker over in the House. Speaker Jones is putting Marylanders Back to Work package, which this bill will offer an incentive also as a priority. If I could just tell you quickly what I forgot to mention, my apologies, the amendments on it. It give priority for state employees who graduated from institutions of higher education in the state where at least 40% of the attendees are eligible to receive Pell Grants. It also would prioritize those individuals again who were part of historically black colleges and universities. And it also would encourage institutions of higher education in the state to advise new graduates, particularly those with an interest in public service, that the tax credit is available for them. So as part of that package is ability, it was the thought that if you offer an incentive to individuals to come work in the state of Maryland, we know student loan debt is a high burden, not just in Maryland, but across the country, but offering incentives to put people back to work, then they would look at this as an incentive and want to come work here in the state of Maryland. So with that being said, I will close and turn it over to the Bankers Association, who is in support.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Enton on behalf of the Maryland Bankers Association. And if I were sitting where you are, I'd be asking myself, why are the bankers here in support of this bill? And the answer is that we think this is an important piece of legislation based upon our experience in dealing with students or graduates that have student loans. Regardless of the circumstances, when you can't repay a loan, it affects your ability going forward because your credit score is going to be in line with the fact that you didn't pay your loan. And for students, I think, you know, many of them don't understand that. That's a loan. What's the big deal if I don't repay it? And what we want to make sure is we can do everything to incentivize students to repay these loans. And I would tell you that our banks, you know, are not heavily engaged in the student lending programs, but we see the effects of it when we try to extend credit to a student. I think it's also very important. You know, I didn't even know what a federal Pell Grant was until I got involved in this piece of legislation. And, you know, that's a program that is designed specifically for students with exceptional financial need, quote unquote. So we think this is an important bill. We'd ask you to please support it. We think it's good for young people as they go forward to be able to have additional assistance. And that's what this will render to those who have a job, who attended one of these schools, who go to work for the state, will render them financial assistance. I'll close, Mr. Chairman, by saying I'm happy to answer any questions, but we think this is a good program and the state should support it. Thank you.
Question, Senator Elfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate, thank you so much for bringing this bill forward. As someone with student debt, and I can speak for my generation, significant student debt and what I would consider completely unreasonable interest rates. I pay a 7% interest rate on my student loans. I just want to give you an opportunity. I would resist the idea that students do not know the consequences of entering into loans. It's that they are locked into the cost of tuition and interest rates that they have no ability to negotiate. I just wanted you to see if you had anything else to elaborate on kind of the circumstances that are just different in 2020 college generations in the past. If you want to elaborate on that, I want to give you that opportunity.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Senator, for the question. I too have student loan debt, and it's law school debt. And law schools are very expensive, and you carry that for 20, sometimes 30 years. I mean, President Obama, you know, talked about him and, you know, our first lady didn't pay off their student loan debt until they were president and first lady. And so, you know, you do have interest rates that are locked in, but a lot of folks are getting caught up in sort of this like predatory situation where it changes. Sometimes parents have debt that they take out for their student because, number one, the cost of tuition is steadily increasing and rising. So the burden of loan debt is rising as well with the cost of tuition. And, you know, I can't really speak to what's happening in 23 because luckily I'm not in the school college anymore. But I can speak to the fact that it still stays with you and that more parents are taking out student loan debt. They are, getting debt that's not, I guess, fixed. It's variable. So it's what is it? It's private loans as well. That is a huge burden. In fact, we had another bill over in the House as it relates to private loans. So, I mean, it is something that's impacting folks all across this country and also is impacting everyone. It is hard for folks to get a home if you have student loan debt. And so, you know, and when they do, sometimes the homes, the mortgages are much higher. And I will say with this program, I'm happy you asked that question, because with the increase from 2 years to 3 years, it gives someone, you know, we currently have the program in the state of Maryland. So I do want to say that this program already exists. We just up in the ante because it's been a lot of interest, and you know, MHAC has really been getting a lot of responses from people. Folks need help. And so basically, once they give you the tax credit back at the end, and you all know this, you're the money folks, so you know how this works. They give you tax credit back on your taxes. You have to show the state of Maryland that you repaid it in 2 years. Well, because of the rising cost of debt, we want to give people an additional year to repay their student loan servicer, because when you got to school, you have to find a job. Some people have to prepare, you know, to be licensed. If you're in law school, you got to take the bar, and in 6 months, you have to repay it back. And, you know, the state of Maryland take forever to get the bar results back. So, you know, it's just additional burden. So give them that additional time to repay because of what's been happening with student loan debt. This bill will go a long way to do that. So I thank you so much for asking that question.
I appreciate you bringing the bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you
Mr.
so
Chair.
much. And if I can, Senator, I failed to mention, and I know I had told you this already, that it is a priority of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland as well. So
Very good.
thank you.
All right, no other questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I think we're going to 896. I think delegates arrived. I'm gonna step away from it.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And esteemed members of the Budget and Taxation Committee, for the record, I'm Delegate Chris Fair here today to present HB 896, legislation seeking to ensure the appropriate use of the property assessment appeals process in Maryland by aligning it with other states in the region and requiring a filing fee for Tier 2, the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, and Tier 3 Maryland Tax Court levels. During the Ways and Means Committee briefing on January the 19th, the State Department of Assessment and Taxation employees were clear. Large corporations actively misuse the tax appeals process to force settlement with SDAT to lower their property assessments, as they are understaffed and unable to fight these appeals. This can change property assessments up to 20% without any hearing and allow millions of dollars in changes for corporations. Without any fees for appealing, it is illogical for corporations not to challenge their property assessment and drive down the assessment of their dozens or possibly hundreds of facilities across the state. Several states have similar filing fee requirements for property appeals, including New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. These fees vary by state, but range from, at the lowest, $25 per property appeal, to at the highest, $500 per property appeal. This legislation simply seeks to give all corporations access to the appeals process while recognizing the unique abuse that can be rampant in a completely free process. To make sure that the bill is more focused, these nominal fees of $50 per property at the PTAB level and $100 per property at the Maryland Tax Court level only apply to properties valued over $1 million. Additionally, if a business appeals their assessment and is successful at the PTAB level or Maryland Tax Court level, they are refunded that filing fee. To summate, HB 896 is a common sense, light mechanism seeking to ensure the appropriate use of the appeals process in Maryland. It aligns our state with other states in the region, charges reasonable and nominal fees, protects small businesses from additional fees, and ensures that if the assessment appeal was found successful, a refund of the filing fee costs. For these reasons, I urge your support of HB 896, and I respectfully request a favorable report. And while not taking a position on this bill, we have asked SSTAT to be available today to answer any technical questions you may have regarding the bill. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mako, who I think is here.
Please feel free to come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of House Bill 896. I think the good delegate did a fantastic job of explaining this bill. For me, it's pretty simple. This bill is just put your money where your mouth is. Nominal fee, as the delegate said. So we know that many large commercial properties, industrial properties, this automatically appeal their assessment. And we also know that, these properties that are valued over $1 million, oftentimes these are very complex. And these appeals take a lot of time and they take money. So like the delegate said, many states have these fees. These fees that proposed in this bill are very nominal, and you will get the fees back if you are successful. But it's just another step in the process. If you're going to appeal your assessment, you have the right to do that. But we know that so many of these are just automatic. So this is just one more step to say, if you really feel like you're aggrieved and you have a good chance of winning your assessment appeal, then you pay the $50 or $100. And if you are successful, you get the money back. But this is just one more step to make people think a little bit before they automatically appeal. We know that SSTAT does not have the time or the resources to handle a lot of these large appeals. And ultimately what happens, like the delegate said, these appeals are reduced, and ultimately that puts the burden on homeowners instead of commercial and industrial property owners. And we just think this is a reasonable bill. Again, put some skin in the game, very nominal skin, but it does make people take 1 second look, and hopefully will disencourage some of these frivolous appeals that we see. So we'd ask for a favorable report.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I have a couple. So how much do we think this is going to raise?
Sorry. According to the fiscal note, the annual revenue raised from this would be just shy of $100,000. Nothing insane.
Well, we'll be the judge of that.
Yeah.
No, the reason I'm asking the question
Yeah.
is you say the understaffing at SSTAT. Do we have any idea what the budget gap in SSTAT in terms of being able to process these things?
I do not. That might be a tech. And again, I've got Jonathan here who might be able to speak on that.
If you could come up, come on up. Join the party.
And again, I will preface this by saying SSTAT did not take a position on
I
this.
understand.
Michael Higgs, Director of SSTAT. Our program has problems retaining commercial assessors. The way the salary structure is, we end up losing them to neighboring jurisdictions, DC, Fairfax, Loudoun, Pennsylvania, have you. So retaining on assessors on the commercial side has been increasingly difficult. As far as funding, it would take probably a couple million more per year to adequately staff up our commercial assessment program.
Have you made requests to do that?
Yes, we have.
And they've not been accepted?
Well, for the last 7 years, our budget requests were, our budget was reduced on the front end, and then we were asked for reversions on the back end. So it's been do more with less for the last many years.
Have you made a request during this administration?
Our budget request was made prior to the administration taking over, and we have not yet met with DBM to talk about anything.
Did you
new
discuss
on
this
that.
issue with our budget subcommittees in the House and the Senate?
We did discuss this, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. If I may ask, I should know which subcommittee you're in. Here, which subcommittee, does the staff know?
Public safety.
Public safeties. So that's us. I don't recall. I may not have been there. Seriously. I mean, we heard lots of these kind of issues. Yeah, oh, really? Okay, the chair. I defer to the chair. Well, we don't need to solve this in this bill. Public safety in the House, but not in the Senate?
Forgive me for forgetting. It's been a whirlwind.
It's health.
Health and government ops. Okay.
Okay, well, we're not gonna solve the whole problem here, but I think there's interest in the committee I'm hearing
in sort of looking at this issue, and I think it'd be worth discussing with the budget subcommittees and with the administration.
And
What-
Mr. Chair, if I may just add to that, I have submitted for requests of breakdowns of the current staffing shortages as well as financials. I'll be happy to share this with.
That'd
your
be
office
great.
Because I'm actively working towards addressing that, or at least requesting more information about how we've come up with such a shortfall.
That's terrific. Well, I mean, again, this is me speaking. I mean, I would think about it macro going forward. We'll consider this bill on its merits and we'll talk offline on the budget issues, but we've had this issue in other areas where we need to make sure that, I mean, this is protecting revenue. And so we want to make sure the controllers talked about some of their issues, an area where I think we want to explore. So are there other questions or comments from members of the committee for this panel? Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And we have one witness unfavorable, Brian Young. Two? You're absolutely right. There are two, Alex. Yeah, both, if Bushel and Young would come up, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm here in opposition of House Bill 896.
Could you introduce yourself and who you represent?
Yes, I'm Brian Young. I'm past chair of the tax section of the Maryland State Bar. I am the author of the Maryland chapter of the ABA's, the American Bar Association's Property Tax Desk Book. I'm the sole Maryland member of the National Association of Property Tax Attorneys. For the past 30 years, I've represented Maryland commercial and residential property owners on property tax appeals. SCAT, the appeal boards, and the tax court have long had a position not to discourage taxpayers from appealing their assessment. This bill goes in opposite direction of that longstanding policy and discourages taxpayers to appeal. By only imposing a fee on commercial properties assessed over $1 million, this bill arbitrarily discriminates against one class of taxpayer and doesn't place the same burden on all taxpayers. SDAT is understaffed and underfunded, and as a result, many appeals are affirmed or inadequately adjusted, thus requiring appeals to the appeal board. The Maryland Tax Court has had a long-standing policy of not imposing a filing fee. If this bill passes, only real property tax appeals to the tax court would be subject to a fee, while an income tax appeal, a sales tax appeal, a personal property tax appeal, or a transfer tax appeal would not be subject to the same fee. The other problem with the bill is many properties are not made up of just one parcel. For example, I represent an apartment complex made up of 7 parcels. Thus, a $700 fee would be required to appeal to the Maryland Tax Court. In short, Maryland taxpayers should not have to pay a fee to exercise their legal right to appeal their assessment. We would welcome questions and thank you. And we ask for an unfavorable.
Thank you very much. Please, sir.
Hi, my name is Alex Bushell, members of the committee. I'm also an attorney who's practiced in the area, this area of the law for the past 13 years. And I'm opposed for a number of reasons, which I laid out in my written testimony. But first, really, I'd ask you to slow down with this for at least a session and do a little more due diligence into this. I know this is a sort of a late bill. It was drafted during the session. And you really, I would recommend talking not just to some practitioners, but also to the PTAB and the tax court, which are the two agencies that are actually going to have to collect this fee. Neither of them knew about this till after it was filed. And after talking to numerous, a number of the property tax assessment appeal board clerks, they're not happy about the prospect of a serious new responsibility being thrown on their plate, which is the handling of money, which, as you know, requires a lot more supervision and effort, especially with a government agency. And obviously, they're not getting a pay increase for the extra duty that will be thrown on their lap. But where I agree strongly with Delegate Fair is, and I think is the real source of this problem, is the understaffing at SDAT. It's come to a crisis point. Some of the big counties, one of the big 5 early this year, had no commercial assessors on staff due to people leaving and then some family issues. But I can't tell you how bad that is for them. And they have to continue to do their entire job, which includes reassessment, picking up new construction, handling appeals. defending these appeals in PTAB and the tax court. And to have a large county with no staff is just unbelievable, but that's not the only one. Other big counties are seriously understaffed. They can't keep the people long enough because they're young, ambitious, and they get such better offers from other neighboring jurisdictions or other careers and leave. So I think that's the problem, which would solve so much of these issues.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this panel? Don't see any. Thank you very much. Thank you. I believe that concludes the hearing on this bill. Is Delegate Naraki here?
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
All right.
We'll be now hearing House Bill 1096.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members of the committee. For the record, I am Delegate Ryan Naraki, House Bill 1096. As a member of a local volunteer fire department, I've seen firsthand how important these organizations are to support the safety of our communities. First responders, I believe, need our full and committed support for all their sacrifices that are made by the men and women that form all of our volunteer fire departments. This bill aims to reduce their property tax expenses by proposing a property tax exemption on additional lands owned by volunteer fire and rescue companies for lands that are related to fire and rescue activities. These additional properties often include future prospective firehouse sites and land that is also used for other training purposes. It is a local bill. It does have the support of the Baltimore County Executive. It has the unanimous support of the Baltimore County Council. It had the unanimous support of the Baltimore County House delegation, passed unanimously out of the House. And just yesterday, I got the support of the Fire and EMS Caucus. I think it's a pretty simple bill. It has a relatively small impact. It's about 6 sites as best I can tell that would be impacted in Baltimore County by this bill. So it is a small impact, but it is important to those volunteer fire departments that would be impacted by this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I believe that there may be a witness, Mr. Chair, virtually.
I believe there is 2. Do we have? Why don't we let William go ahead?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chair, Senators, delegates, and guests. My name is Bill Connolly, President, Middle River Volunteer Fire Rescue Company, or MRVFR for short. Middle River is a result of 2 volunteer fire stations, Middle River Volunteer Fire Company and Middle River Volunteer Ambulance and Rescue Company consolidating in 2015. MRVFR serves Eastern Baltimore County citizens in the legislative 7A district, with some of our apparatus responding as far as Dundalk and to the Harford County line in legislative district 6 and 8. MRVFR has one of the most diverse amounts of emergency apparatus in Baltimore County, with an engine, squad, truck, medic, and dive unit. We have over 200 volunteers, with some more active than others. We operate out of a fire station built in the 1950s with an addition built in the early 80s. MRVFR was donated 7 acres in our first due to become the future site of our new fire station, which we're in finalizing stages of design work with the architects. MRVFR had to purchase 1 acre of property next to the 7 acres to make this future site possible. In 2021, MRVFR was operating out of 2 parent company stations until we condensed the operation into 1 station, selling off one of our stations in property. We currently pay over $9,000 every year in property taxes. MRVFR is a small budget company compared to our other volunteer stations in Baltimore County. We're a good example of Baltimore County's do more with less motto. We spend most of our money to maintain our apparatus, tools, supplies, and aging facility to provide emergency services to our community. While we only cost the county approximately $241,000 in financial support each year, we save millions in taxpayer dollars in staffing and operating costs if it were a career station.
Thank you very, very much. Members of the committee have Senator Elfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Delegate, thank you for bringing this bill. We're just chatting, I think, point of confusion. Our fire company, volunteer fire companies, I have many in my district. Are they not registered nonprofits?
They are registered nonprofits.
Okay.
Sorry. Go ahead.
They're still paying.
On some of the properties they own, they're still paying taxes. Generally speaking, they do not pay tax on the property where their firehouse is located at.
Okay.
In certain cases, like Middle River Volunteer Fire Department, they may have acquired a piece of property to build a new firehouse, so they would be paying tax on that property, sort of disincentivizing this new fire station from being created. There are also some properties in Baltimore County where they might have an adjacent unimproved property, but they may use that for training or parking or things like that for the operations of the firehouse, that they are paying property tax on those properties as well. It's a relatively small number, but you know, for Middle River, it's $9,000 a year. That's $9,000 that could go back to equipment or other training and things like that.
Thank you. Thanks for
Yes.
bringing it up. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Senator Sally.
Thank you. I want to thank the good delegate for bringing this bill. It is a good bill. I mean, we want to help out our public servants and our fire department. This is just one way where we can do that. So I want to thank the good delegate for bringing this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. Trying to understand your response to Senator Elford. You said if the fire department is not paying where the current station is seated, but if you bought some additional property and you're paying taxes there until you build another fire department?
Yes, Senator. So that could be one of the types of property that would be impacted. Sometimes some of these also volunteer fire departments in Baltimore County have existed for a very long period of time. They might have acquired a second parcel of land that's unimproved next to where their firehouse is located at, because that's not where that parcel is not where the firehouse itself sits on. They may also be paying tax on that parcel of land that they often might be using to, you know, put a car to cut up sometimes to practice those kinds of extractions. They might allow a piece of equipment to sit on that piece of property, and sometimes they're paying tax on that property as well.
Okay, I think I understand. I represent 3 counties and we have paid in volunteer in Prince George's and volunteer in Charles and Calvert. So, all right, thank you for answering the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
That looks like we've covered it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have House Bill 1196, Delegate Smith. Did you want to add something?
If I may.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michael Higgs, Director of the Department of Assessments and Taxation. Current law grants tax exempt status for property that is held in an advanced land acquisition program of the fire company or rescue squad. Furthermore, the law restricts a fire company from an exemption if the property is leased for more than 60 days during a 12-month period. The bill would allow a fire company or rescue squad to acquire any type of property, including improved property, and receive an exemption for some indefinite period simply by stating they intend to use the property at some undefined point in time. For example, under this legislation, the fire company could own and operate a shopping center for 30 years while stating that they intend to use the property at the end of that time, and the property would be exempt from taxes for the entire 30-year period. In order to close this loophole, the department recommends adding the words, quote, unimproved real property on page 3, line 8. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Delegate Smith, Delegate Rosenberg has been sitting here a really long time and he doesn't have any witnesses, and I feel a lot of pity for him. So I'm going to let him come up and give his bill.
And it's getting late in the game.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know, but
I'm
I will-
amazed at seeing you here today.
No. Next week, I hope you won't see me here today.
Okay.
But I can say that in the bottom of the first inning at Yankee Stadium, guess who hit a home run on his first at bat? The judge. Yes, sir. Madam Chair and members of the Budget and Tax Committee, sports fans. This bill has to do with the slots money. The money that goes to the neighborhoods surrounding Pimlico Racecourse. From its inception, the bulk of this money was to go to the area within the Pimlico Master Plan, which is an expansive area south of the racetrack site, where there is great need. But we also provided from the outset that a portion of the money would go to what's called in the law the 1 mile radius neighborhoods, which are on the northern side of the track, all within Baltimore City, and are also negatively affected historically by the racetrack. So that the law originally and still states that at least 75% of the revenue that goes to the Pimlico Community Development Authority from slots is to be used for uses consistent with the Park Heights Master Plan. Several years after the bill's enactment, then Mayor Pugh changed that, as was absolutely permitted, to 85% of the money going to the Park Heights Master Plan. And what this bill would do would be codify existing practice and make that 85% a ceiling, providing that the bill would provide that 85% of the money shall be spent consistent with the master plan for Park Heights, as opposed to the current language of at least 75. This bill passed out of both the City House delegation and the House unanimously. The hearing before the City Senate delegation is tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Smith, come on up. She's got House Bill 1196.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and anything for the Dean of our delegation.
Absolutely.
Very happy to be flexible. For the record, I'm Delegate Stephanie Smith, here to present House Bill 1196. And thank you, Madam Chair, distinguished members of B&T. I'm here to present a bill that was only a House bill. And so it's focusing on the blueprint implementation. As we all know, there is a requirement for every local education agency to have someone dedicated to monitoring the implementation of the blueprint for Maryland's future. But there has been some difficulty, I think, ensuring that people with the requisite skills and abilities to do that are identified and supported. So what this bill seeks to do is provide funding for that role that would be adequate to attract people with the necessary skills and retain them. In many instances, there are people doing these functions, but the agencies are coming up with that money with a combination, of moving things around. So we want to create dedicated salary support, approximately $150,000 per implementation coordinator. And this would be income rated consistent with the foundation program that all of our school agencies participate in. This bill does an additional thing related to the evaluation of the accountability board, the AIB. It just pushes back the date for that independent evaluation to be performed to December of 2026. It's a combination of the administrative parts of the AIB coming up a bit slower due to some, funding delays. And then also the fact that they're just kind of getting started. We want to give them the full amount of time to be evaluated. And so that was the reason to just moving that back to December of 2026. And then additionally, this bill also contemplated some additional support for the local cost share for this fiscal year. And that was based on some density ratings for 2 school systems, including the Kent County Public Schools, as well as Baltimore City. And so that's what this bill essentially addresses: dedicated funding for blueprint implementation coordinators, also moves back the evaluation due date to 2026 for the AIB. And then it does provide some additional support for the local cost share for Kent County schools in Baltimore City. And
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, you've got 2 in-person people to testify and 2 virtual.
Yes,
I think we have Mary Pat Vannon. I saw you back in the corner. Ron Fithian.
Yes, ma'am.
That's you. Okay.
You want this one?
I guess I'll. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mary Pat Madden. I'm the Executive Director of the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland. I'm here to speak in strong support of this bill. The legislature had the foresight in the final blueprint legislation to require the LEAs and the counties to jointly appoint a blueprint coordinator. So July 21 came along and we said, oh, we need to do this. What does this person do? We don't know, but we have to name them. So we started sort of meeting once a month. My organization convened them for about a year and we were sort of figuring out what to do. So without a job description, it mostly got added to other people's plates. Then once AIB was up and running, MSDE getting a little bit more comfortable in their new with their new superintendent, we started meeting a lot. And in fact, from July of 22 to now, 62 meetings. I mean, it's been an insane amount of work. The blueprint coordinators are fantastic, but some of them are also the CFOs, the director of accountability. Dr. Couch, my superintendent from Kent County, was the blueprint coordinator for a few months. So it really also is an equity issue because the bigger counties can sort of have a team. Whereas, you know, like I said, people are doing double and triple duty. One question that's come up, the funding was changed in the House from a state grant to funding in like the foundation funding, so wealth equalized by the counties. And so there's been a little bit of upset about that. I'll just point out that this is a joint appointment. It's also only for 2 years and it's not a ton of money. And it really is about equity and being able to give these folks the support that they need. And it doesn't have to be 150 of the salary. We just said personnel costs.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fithian?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chairman and the committee members for allowing me to speak here today. Kent County is supportive of the programmatic improvements to the public education system outlined in the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. The Blueprint's physical mandates disproportionately affect Kent County due to the low student count being such a small school system. Kent County has been identified as one of the local jurisdictions most impacted by the Blueprint for Maryland's Future in terms of increases in per pupil appropriations relative to local wealth. The physical stress to Kent County is repeatedly noted in the local physical impact of implementing the Blueprint for Stress to Kent County is repeatedly noted in the local physical impact of implementing the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. Department of Legislative Services Office of Policy Analysis dated January 2022, and Kent County fully supports House Bill 1196 and seeks a favorable review by the Budget and Taxation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Karen Couch.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Karen Couch, and I'm the superintendent of Kent County Public Schools. On behalf of the Kent County Board of Education, we fully support House Bill 1196. This bill will provide funding for each school system to hire a blueprint implementation coordinator. Many coordinators wear multiple hats and have significant responsibilities in addition to the blueprint work. This is especially challenging in smaller districts. Kent County also supports the appropriation to a local school system with a full-time equivalent student enrollment of fewer than 2,000 students. Kent County Public Schools is the smallest school system in Maryland with an enrollment of 1,751 students and 5 schools. 2 of our schools are designated concentration of poverty schools, and next year all schools will participate in the community eligibility provision. Under the best of circumstances, we face significant challenges due to our size. For instance, the same funding is needed to operate and maintain a school of 150 students or a school of 500 students. Due to our small enrollment, the formula simply does not generate enough funding to support our basic needs. A small system just simply needs more funding due to the economy of scale. As a member of the Kirwan Commission, I advocated for additional funding for the smallest counties in Maryland. There are 37 states that provide additional funding to support their smallest and sparse school systems. One size simply does not fit all. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future will bring exciting opportunities to improve education. However, there will be significant fiscal challenges for the smallest county, and Blueprint mandates will stretch our county and district resources. Please ask yourself whether the smallest school system in this state matters to you. With adequate resources, we will struggle. On behalf of the Kent County Public Schools, I urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Brianna, January.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, esteemed committee. For the record, Brianna January, representing the Maryland Association of Counties in support of HB 1196 with amendments. Committee, the original intent of HB 1196 as drafted and as introduced was to provide state grants to local school districts to cover the salaries of these local blueprint coordinators. Counties and MACO were in strong support of that original version of the bill. However, as you've heard, House amendments have effectively changed the intent of the bill, now placing a cost mandate on counties. And I do believe that my good friend, Ms. Fannin, did misspoke. Those amendments would not only make local coordinator positions a shared cost, but the amendments do mandate a minimum salary of $150,000 for these positions, as noted on, I pulled it up the bottom of page 3 of the reprint. And committee, that's across all 24 counties without any consideration of the significant variance in cost of living and financial capacity of our diverse counties. In practice, for example, this would mean that a blueprint coordinator in Garrett County would make the same as one in Montgomery County, despite the very different jurisdictions. And committee, as I mentioned, the bill as amended no longer provides those state grants to fully fund these positions, and instead it does place a mandate onto counties to help fund those salaries. This comes as counties are already facing daunting funding obligations under the blueprint. As such, counties respectfully do request that the committee adopt amendments to revert the bill back to providing state grants to fund those positions. In doing so, you will help provide critical state support for these required positions, and you'd ease some of counties' mounting blueprint burden. I know that these positions are not a significant financial burden, but they do still pose a challenge for us, and this would be a great show of support for counties. MACO supports HB 1196 and urges a favorable report with those amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question to the sponsor of the bill. I think it's a good bill. I just have a couple of questions. So how were these two jurisdictions determined to be the ones who would need these funds?
It was based on a population density and also as the Kent County, I believe, you're the commissioner, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they have a disproportionate burden because they're small in terms of the things that were just outlined. And then similarly, there was a dramatic increase in the expectation for local cost share from Baltimore City, bigger than any other jurisdiction. The theoretical proposal was 54 million that everyone was prepared to pay for local share, and it went up to 79.2.
And I think, so I'm glad you brought the bill forward. I just wanted to add that Prince George's has a whopping amount of that they're going to have to pay as well. So I was just trying to determine what was the criteria for that.
The largest community eligible district based on population and with the need in terms of the local cost share increase. It was at the intersection of those 2 points.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I do hope to see some of you at 3:30 in appropriations.
Okay, we have House Bill 543, Delegate Tomlinson.
Hi.
Welcome.
Nice to see you. It's my first time in the Senate. Well, I was going to say thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman, but
I'm the fill-in.
no, nice to see you again. Thank you. But yes, great to see all the members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Chris Tomlinson, and I'm testifying on House Bill 543. The purpose of this bill is to increase the maximum dollar value threshold for most small procurements from $50,000 to $100,000 and makes conforming changes to other specialized small procurement thresholds, which are identified in the fiscal and policy note and the text of the bill. Due to inflation and especially the rising costs of construction, labor, and materials, I feel that the small procurement thresholds need to be raised. Small procurement thresholds were last raised in 2017, and since then, the world has seen some changes, obviously. Since 2017, we've suffered through the COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted the material supply chain and labor markets. The dollar had an average inflation rate of 3.2% per year between 2017 and today, producing a cumulative price increase of 21.1%. This means that today's prices are 1.2 times as high as the average prices since 2017, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index. Some of you might be asking, well, what is so great about being having a procurement that's deemed a small procurement by the state of Maryland? So normal procurement must be advertised on the state of Maryland's online procurement platform, eMaryland Marketplace Advantage, for a minimum of 20 days. And that is for
for 20 days as compared to a small procurement. If you have a small procurement, it only needs to be advertised on that same online platform for a minimum of 3 days. So this would allow the state to streamline the procurement process and award contracts in a timely manner, something that the state was previously able to do until prices shot up. It is important to note that our friends at the federal level increased their small purchase threshold a few years ago, which is called on the federal side, they call it the simplified acquisition threshold, and they increased theirs from 150,000 to 250,000. We're not quite sure. That's not what I'm proposing. Little less, but this increase would not conflict with what I'm proposing in this bill would not conflict with any of the current Board of Public Works delegated authority thresholds. The authority and oversight that the BPW currently has over procurements would not change in any way under this proposed legislation. And finally, several agencies within the governor's administration have sent in favorable testimony, including the Department of General Services Office of State Procurement, and I'm thrilled to have their support. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Are there any committee questions? Nobody else to testify. You don't have any witnesses with you.
No,
Okay.
I think some agencies, they sent over some written testimony,
All
I
right.
believe.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next we have Delegate Kipke, who've been patiently sitting back there. Senate Bill 701.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For those of you with a legislative bingo card, I'll tell you that I'll be brief. This is a very simple bill.
Aren't they all?
And that all interested parties are supportive and there's no opposition. House Bill 701 was introduced initially to provide some flexibility to the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission, whom the legislature has asked to do an awful lot of new things over the last few years, in consultation with the budget secretary, be able to identify positions for which they have in practical experience been struggling to hire for, to have some flexibility with the salary. So in the bill, you'll notice that there's oversight from the secretary of the budget secretary, and the budget secretary gets to determine which positions would be eligible for this. Currently, employees are just sort of assigned to a current payroll status that may not be particularly connected to the job that's being hired for. This will allow the secretary, with the request of the commission, to determine whether or not a position is eligible for flexibility. The committee across the street liked the bill so much that they added on the comptroller, the treasurer, and the attorney general. And I am very happy to be putting in a bill that might please those people for obvious reasons. So with that, I'll conclude and be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Sarah.
Delegate, thank you so much for this bill. For members of PSTE, we've been struggling with particularly the comptroller and the attorney general's vacancy rates, and they've both made it very clear to us that the ability to internally handle and figure out salary scales is very important to them in actually not just filling the vacancy rates, but the new pins in the next budget. So, but from my understanding, I just want you to confirm for me, if you could, this will be net neutral on the budget. They still have to work within the confines of the budget allocated, suggested by the governor, confirmed by us, and they can have that flexibility within that budget, but they can't increase their budget. It won't be a net increase at all.
That's a great way of putting it. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted that confirmed because I think some folks are confused. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think ends the questions.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. We have one bill left from the Prince George's County delegation, House Bill 1078. Delegate Ivy's name is on here, but I don't. Go right ahead.
Just so you know, I mean, we actually have received that bill in the Prince George's delegation. I'm currently the chair. And we have that bill on hold right now. So we are meeting again tomorrow morning. So I'm not sure why Delegate Ivy is not here, but it's on hold now, delegation. Now we will follow back up with you. Thank you.
Okay, friends, this ends the hearing for this afternoon.